I'm very glad that I can make it here today. I have, as you know, I've been an author for 45 years. Um, Recently, I put down the pen because I want to achieve in the world, the real world, or as Wallace just said, the false world, the anti-civilization. I want to achieve what I've written about for 45 years, what you're reading now in Super Puzzle. It's time to actually bring that to the world. So I am traveling, working with top layers of governments in different countries around the world. I am chasing my ultimate dream, which is removing the ultimate negative of humankind. That ultimate negative is the loss of each and every one of you. Someone at the beginning, was it Willenick?
Malinek, maybe?
What's his name?
Malinek?
Malinek said in his early on this morning, he said how he wants to live forever because he wants to continue to be a value creator for the world. And he's a happy person. Well, I want to get us to the point where we have a choice because we are so happy as value creators living in harmony with our essence that we have the opportunity to continue living into our hundreds if we want to, or even beyond. So that's been my goal, my vision, my big vision, my $1 million vision, if we call it that, since I was a young man, since I was younger than Wallace. So back in those days, to try to talk to somebody about longevity, being such an early proponent of longevity back in the early 80s, late 70s, even my closest friends could not relate. It was just different. It's just, the world's always been a certain way, and it would always be a certain way. Nothing was going to change that. Not back then. So when I talked to my friends or my coworkers, they were not interested, and I realized they just weren't ready for this. But that drove me into something. Deeper. I had to ask, why? Why are they not ready for this? And that's what began my journey. I had to get in and study the human psyche to understand why isn't it just not human nature? Survival mechanism, right? To continue living. This is when I began to realize the whole of what we're doing. This goes even before myself, with my father. He was a philosopher, and he developed a very unique philosophy that was structured on something that the world doesn't see this perspective. And that was removing the negative. Removing the negative. I realized 45 years ago, that my goal, my ultimate goal, would only be successful if I could remove the negative, remove what was blocking people from desiring longevity. That took me through a long journey, through business, relationships, politics, of, yes, removing the negative. Neothink. That's really what Neothink is all about. removing the negative. That's what Wallace, my son, is doing with you today. He's removing the negative. And let me tell you why that's so powerful. Let's take, there's many different areas we could look at in life. You know, there's business, there's romance relationships, platonic relationships, there's health, there's physical activity, sports. There's many things we could look at. But let's just pick one we're all involved with more or less, and that's business. Whether you're working for a business, or if you own a business, or if you desire to own a business. Let's look at business. Reaching all the way back to 3,500 years, say, to the Phoenician seafarers, all the way to today in the internet and AI. In that long period, 3,500 years in between. Well, there's always improvements, right? Business evolves, and it's been tremendous. Look how we have evolved in just the last 100 years. Look how we're evolving today. There's endless evolvements for business, progress. Just go on the internet and look at all the business gurus, all the business courses, all the business books. Basically, it's infinite, right? Because for the past 3,500 years, see how far we've come. Now let's think about the next 3,500 years. It's infinite. Adding the positive is infinite. Now, Neothink, which grew out of the Neotech philosophy, is removing the negative. So, when back in my early 20s, and I looked and I said, well, why do my buddies act like they're old and dying when I talk about longevity? What's wrong with them? What's wrong with them? I talked to a friend when I'm, a family man with 4 children, and I talked about it enthusiastically, a good friend of mine. And he stops and he grimaces and he says, well, I wouldn't want to live forever. What's wrong with that? What's wrong? So I approach the human psyche and business very differently than all the business gurus you find online. And that's why we are just so unique. You're not going to find this anywhere else, and so powerful. Here's the power. Here's the leverage. As I said, adding the positive, well, that's infinite. Removing the negative, well, there's only so much negative, right? A handful, maybe a couple handfuls. So when you remove a negative, the leverage is like this. If you go on the computer and you absorb business hacks, it's kind of like this, right? Oh, that helped me a little bit. They're transient. Not working so good now. Here's something else, right? Now, but when you remove a negative, and there's only a limited number of negatives, like there's a few colors, right? 3 basic colors. There's not that many negatives. You remove a negative and bam, the leverage is so powerful. That's why everything you learn from Wallace today, everything you learn from my books, everything you learn from the Neothink Society is so leveraged. You're not going to find that anywhere else. Because we work off of the philosophy. Even in the most everyday business structure, we work off the philosophy of removing the negative. I'll give you some examples that will make it very clear to you. So here I am looking at this crazy thought of longevity when I was in my young 20s. No one was interested. So I go in and I look into the human psyche and I say, what is wrong? And I see, as I study people, as I read books, I see something that stood out to me. And it's called stagnation. And I saw how universal stagnation was. And I realized how people cannot live forever. They will drown in stagnation over time as they get older. When you're young, there's all sorts of life experiences you want to have and to fulfill. But when you get to my age and older, you've done all that. So if you're in a routine rut, a stagnation trap, it weighs very heavy on a person as they get older. Because they're just recycling the old. They're not creating the new. And it's that creating the new that makes life exhilarating, and you will never run out of the desire to live. I think Wallace mentioned Google billionaires who want to live forever. Almost all of them do. They're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into longevity research and development. That tells you a lot. He's going to get in the wealth section next. So here I am realizing that it's stagnation that's blocking progress. So this is all tying back into business. This is not a business guru hack. No, this is something extremely fundamental in human nature. We were not made for stagnation. As Wallace said, we were made for creation. We are the only living entity, the only thing, as a matter of fact, in our known universe that can create values and build and create and build and create. That is our essence. And only when you're in harmony with your essence do you experience abiding happiness. Stagnation vanishes. So stagnation. So I looked at stagnation as a young man. I said, well, how can we remove that negative? That led me into years of research and studying psychology, and began to realize that people are stuck in a following mode. It starts when they're babies. They're born, they look around, they follow their parents, they follow their older siblings, then they follow the world around them as they get a little bit older and become toddlers. Then they go to school and they are told what to do. As Wallace mentioned earlier, they follow the rules, they follow their teachers. Then they get older and they get a job and they follow their routine rut. They do what they're told from upper management. Creativity just sort of leaves us, or never enters us, I guess we can say. So then, they get older and they join the military and they're told what to do, and then they get older and they vote, and the politicians tell us what to do, and the talking heads tell us what to do. And so therefore, we are stuck in the following mode. And I can tell you right now, after decades of deep dive research, the human mind is not meant to be a follower. It's just not meant to be a follower. It's meant to be a creator. That's our essence. And we are not in harmony with our essence, and therefore that horrible, ugly thing called stagnation just begins to grow like the blob and take over our lives. And we are not going to live forever. We're going to succumb in our mid-70s to what we're supposed to succumb to in that life. So here I am, a young man. I'm looking at all this, studying all this, and began to realize we need to remove the following mode. Well, how do we do that? You see, I'm not providing business hacks, okay? I'm removing the negative. The leverage is so powerful in the Neo-Think society because that's what we are all about, removing the negative. There's only so many negatives. There's only so many colors. There's only so many shapes. We remove the negative. So I'm saying, how do we remove the following mode? That sent me into extensive research. I came upon Julian Jaynes, the origin of consciousness and the breakdown of the bicameral mind, and learned that there was another mentality before consciousness. the bicameral mentality. And by the way, let me tell you right here and right now, the academe, your authorities, the experts, they're gonna foo-foo Julian Jaynes. Don't let them do that to you. Get a copy of his book. I don't get any proceeds by the sales of Julian Jaynes' books. Get a copy and read it. It will blow your mind. All right, you realize where so many of our problems come from, because there's a residual in us that craves and reaches back to being led like the bicameral man was led by external authority, because he had no consciousness yet, no introspection, no internal authority. So he was just like an animal of nature, but much smarter than the other animals because of the size of our brain, and we had developed language, and that's how we communicated. So without getting too far into that, today, our brains are identical to the bicameral brain. It's just that we invented a new way of thinking. There's a whole story behind it with Julian Jaynes' book that will tell you what that is. What broke us into introspection and into the ability to lead ourselves, to guide ourselves, and make decisions ourselves. So, yes, I came upon that breakthrough of knowledge and began to realize we are stuck in a bicameral-like mentality. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with us. A lot of it has to do with what Wallace just talked to you about, the matrix of illusions that are designed to keep you in the following mode. To follow, who do we follow here? You got it, the ruling class. The ruling class is getting rich off of your back. Now look at what's happening here, the breadth of what I'm talking about. And it all comes back to something so simple as business and my business techniques. How I developed how to start building integrated thinking, not following specialized thinking, but integrated thinking, pulling together puzzle pieces as you're learning in Super Puzzle, to building a puzzle picture that gives you breakthroughs of new knowledge. That's creation. That's creation. So when you read my business techniques, you're not reading business hacks. You're not seeing me adding a positive. That's why my techniques and tools, they are absolutely timeless. To give you an example, when I first got started, I had a real challenge and a real difficulty with time management because the business was growing and I was drowning. So I read every book available on time management. I went to all the seminars. Back then, seminars were a big thing. You actually travel and sit in an auditorium and listen to a seminar. Now we do it through Zoom. I did all of that. And the discipline that was required to gain 1 to 2 extra hours a day, it just wasn't worth it. And here again, I stopped and looked at this and I said, there's got to be something better. And again, I said, how can I remove the negative? And I studied all the time management programs, every single one of them. I was an avid reader. And I realized that all the time management programs were reacting to the environment. We're reacting. And when and if you study Julian Jaynes, you realize that's what the bicameral mentality was. It was just reacting to the environment. I said, this is an outdated and outmoded approach to time management. We have to take it into the conscious mentality, which is controlling your environment. Now, those of you, I know some of my readers here, they have read my business techniques and they know what I'm talking about, the Many Day Power Thinking Team. It's the best time management program by far ever conceived. And when I was in my young 20s, when I did that through NeoThink, through pulling together these integrations by removing the negative. Today, it's what I use today. This is how I can manage what I manage. It's literally a mountain worth of work what I manage and handle through the Many Day Power Thinking Team. By the way, what you're learning today with Wallace is removing the negative. He is giving you something incredibly valuable. And let me explain what that is. For things to take off in the world or in life, You need a valid foundation to work off of. Now, I can give you a quick example of that. The founding of America, of our country, our founding fathers took 100 years of classical liberalism, starting 100 years earlier with John Locke, working all the way up where other politicians or philosophers or economists were, using bits and pieces here and there, applying it here and there. They codified all the Enlightenment principles into a foundation called the U.S. Constitution. And upon that foundation grew the greatest country that's ever existed. You need that foundation. You need that launch pad. And the Founding Fathers gave that to us with the U.S. Constitution. And today, I dare say that Wallace is giving that to you on a personal level, a launching pad to launch into orbit where you've never gone before. How is he doing it? He's removing the negative. It's that leverage that you don't get out there from business hacks and things like that. The Neothink Society is very, very unique that way. Everything I've done, all my Neothink, grew off a philosophy of removing the negative, the leverage, the power. Those of you who work for a business or who own a business are more than likely living in a more of a bicameral type setup. Most businesses are broken down following the old manufacturing model of the division of labor. And what that means is most employees are never tapping the power of their mind. And that division of labor is great for manufacturing, but it's never, and by the way, that's all automated today and robotics and automation, but that was never meant for business. Never meant. That was a huge error, a huge mistake to bring the division of labor into business. Because what you've done is you've robbed mankind, your employees, of their power, of their reason for living, which is creating values. You say, here, I'm delegating. So here you go, here's your job of labor, follow through, and there's that stagnant routine rut that I talk about. You can't do that. You can't live into your hundreds doing that. You have to bring in your creativity. And the business you work for, I show you ways. I developed a whole new business structure called the Division of Essence, where every employee in the company, every single employee, has a piece of the business's value creation essence. So if you work for a company, I show you how you can get a chunk of that essence. And if you run a business, run a company, wow, your business is going to explode. It's going to be incredible when you take all of that asset that you have working for you, all your employees, and you unleash their creative powers. It'll be an incredible change for your business. I did that with my publishing business, and suddenly we went from a little fledgling business to a massive publishing business in 140 countries around the world. I've generated $400 million on this business structure. Very different than anything out there. Why? Because it's not adding the positive. It's not business hacks. It's removing the negative. I could go on and on and on. We have half a century here, sitting in the Neothink Society, of liberating you by removing the negative to let you soar. Wallace today is giving you the launch pad for you individually. Now, there will be, this is level 2, and I'll just say it right now. When he told me what he was selling this for today, this level 2 of $497, I thought, well, that's great, because this is worth many, many times that. You cannot get this from any other business course that's giving you the positive. This removing the negative is something very different. There will be a level 3. Level 3 is going to be extraordinarily powerful because it takes 50 years of tools and techniques of removing the negative. I told you just my time management, what I went through to develop that, to remove the negative, to give the most powerful time management program ever conceived, 40 years later. And the business structure is the most powerful business structure ever conceived, 35 years later. So we take 50 years of all of my NeoThink and my father's Neotech, and we bring it all together into level 3 for you. So when you launch from that launching pad, and you'll be able to do that yourself without going into level 3, you will be a level 2. You will be a level 2 member, which is incredibly good. But if you have us get on that rocket ship with you and launch with you in level 3, it's more than a moonshot. It's your path to reach that unreachable star. And remember, NeoThink removes the negative. So cross out the word unreachable. This is your path to your star. That's what level 3 will bring you. So I'll wrap this up by letting you know what I am doing now that I put down the pen to make this happen in the real world. I am out there to remove the greatest negative on mankind, and that is that each and one of you beautiful people are heading into the unavoidable abyss of age-related chronic diseases, cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, horrible, and what it puts your family through. So this is my long-term goal. I wanted to start this when I was in my 20s, but instead, and I guess it's a blessing to the world, instead, I had to figure out how to remove stagnation from people's lives and created the most potent, powerful business tools and techniques to help them do that. And I haven't even gotten in to talk about what I've done politically. That's another whole story, and I don't want to bore you with politics. But right now, I'm in the arena, friends. I am with top levels of governments and countries around the world. And it's a battle, and it's a risky battle. But this is my end game. I want to remove the negative of chronic age-related diseases and ultimately the disease of aging itself. Remove that negative. And eventually, the greatest negative of all on our planet. And that's human death. If your great value to the world as this beautiful, honorable value creator wants to live on, to continue to bring value to your fellow man, then by God, by all means, you should be able to do that. And that's my reachable star. So thank you, and now you know a little bit more about NeoThink and what we're doing here. It's very different than anything you'll ever find anywhere else. I'm going to turn it back over to my son. Thank you all. I'm glad I was able to stop by today. Just looking at all of you here. Thank you. Thank you for all the hearts and clapping, and love you very much. Let's do this.